Instructions for accessing subtitles in a language other than English are included on our board meetings webpage as well as in the description below. Instrucciones para acceder a los subtítulos en un idioma que no sea el inglés se incluyen en nuestra página web de reuniones de la Junta, así como en la descripción a continuación.
Good evening and welcome to the Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees regular meeting. Today is June 17th and I am calling our meeting to order at 6:05 p.m. We have 3 trustees present in person at the Ross Valley School District office at 100 Shaw Drive in San Anselmo. Actually, we have 3 trustees present. Myself, Rachel Litwack, Daniel Cassidy, and Chris Landles-Cobb. Trustees Shelley Hamilton and Anna Marsh are both unable to attend tonight. We also have cabinet members present. We have Superintendent Tyler Graff, we have CBO Chris Carson, and we have our Director of Student Services, Lori O'Connor. Our meeting is being live streamed via YouTube, and the link is on our website and on the agenda. There will be a 60-second delay between the meeting and the YouTube live stream. A recording of the meeting will be made available to the public on our district YouTube website within 72 hours. With that, I am going to move on to the next item on our agenda. First item here is closed session. I'm going to identify our topics of closed session. The first one is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, subdivision D2 or 3, special education program dispute, 1 case, student SSID 118-377-2013. There is no public here to make a public comment, so I'm going to recess us to closed session at 6:06 p.m. Welcome back. We are reconvening in open session at 6:29 p.m. Reporting out from closed session. We approved 3-0. The staff recommendation on special education program dispute 1 case, student SSID 118-377-2013. Our next item here is C1, procedural items, Pledge of Allegiance, and Democratic Reflection. I don't have a reflection. Does anyone else up here at the dais have one? No? All right, with that, I will start the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to join me, please feel free. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item, C2, is to adopt the agenda and time allocations. I did have some changes that needed to be noted. Item B6 on the agenda needs to move above B4. They were out of order when they were listed. And item E4 needs to be updated to reflect 2026 to 27 instead of 2025 to 26. Mm-hmm. Do we have any other agenda changes or questions on that? Okay.
Yeah, I saw the latter one. I was going to say something.
Okay, great. So with that, we do need to adopt the agenda and time allocations if anyone would like to make a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda time allocations.
I'll second it.
Chris?
See, aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
And Rachel, aye. Okay. So we have an agenda. Item D2, communication. We have public comment regarding items not on the open session agenda. Do we have any public comment? Right. We have 3 minutes, and then you'll get a warning at 2.5 minutes.
Hello. I would like to let you guys all know that you look fantastic in this lighting. This is some of the best public meeting lighting I've ever seen, and I think it deserves to be shown off on Zoom. Please make Zoom participation available for families who have young kids and for people with disabilities. Thank you.
I think I meant to say this a while ago, but forgot. But just as a point of reference, Fairfax's budget line item for Zoom participation in their meetings is $7,000 a year. So it's not extremely high cost. I just wanted to, we were all very happy with the success of Measure H. Just remind everybody in the district and the community that there are consequences for our not passing Measure E and not providing sufficient salaries and benefits on time. Since the Measure E election, we've lost 6 recent Golden Bell Award winners. We've had a number of long tenured teachers resign or retire. I'm sure our average teacher length of their career is going to drop as we move forward, and just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of this, and we're always cognizant that every thing we can be doing, even outside of the big elections that pass, is important to keeping our schools as healthy and of such great quality as much as we can. Thanks.
Any other public comment on that agenda items? Okay, thank you. Next item here is D2, correspondence and communication to the board. We did have some communication there. Hopefully everyone had a chance to read those and go through them. I appreciate the public sending us messages. Our next item is D3, announcements by labor unions, CSEA and RVTA.
Hello. So we're here on behalf of Ross Valley Teachers Association. We want to express our immense gratitude to the Measure H campaign. Thank you to the many people, especially to Anya Twig for her dedication, commitment, everybody's commitment, creativity, research, creativity, coordination, communication, and organization, on and on. What went down in the last few months was really inspiring. We want to thank the entire board and Superintendent Graff for your countless hours that went into discussing, making decisions, and your efforts to engage the whole community over the last 2 years more. So we came together, digging deeper, asking questions, and our community has a greater understanding of the public school funding. We've learned a lot, more than we wanted to, and an awareness of what needs to change and improve at the state level. In the past 3 years or so, our members really stepped up to shine a light on the realities of our lives as educators in this district. We shared our stories and hardships to educate our parent community and the board. And in creating this awareness, our parent community really showed up for us, and the response in the last year has been overwhelming. We don't feel like we're on an island anymore. We now feel seen and heard and supported, and that we're building bridges and working together towards a healthier school community for our students, educators, and families. Last week, as you may know, our members voted to accept our tentative agreement, with 90% of our members voting to approve. We're proud that we have negotiated a 2-year contract and that we're beginning the school year with a contract. And yet, many questions remain. How many more teachers are leaving this year? Will we end up at the bottom again as other districts are going to give bigger raises because a lot of them just passed their own parcel tax campaigns using the same message that we did. So but yet we are, with cautious optimism, looking eagerly to the future, knowing our work is not done. But we trust and hope that we're all rowing in the same boat, in the same direction, always keeping our students at the forefront. So thank you all. Thank you all.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Our next item is E, presentation and/or action items. E1 is recommended approval of provisional internship permit, PIP application.
That one is me. I love this one because this is, sometimes we bring to you the need to bridge a credential in one way or another. So that's what this is. This is a credential bridge, but this one is really exciting for us because it's someone who has been a classified employee at Whitehill, has been a program aide, Lorna Bolano, and she has started a program getting her degree in special education, and she will be a resource teacher for us at Whitehill. So really, really terrific. She will receive mentoring and support all along the way, but we're just really excited to see this pathway for some of our classified employees coming to fruition.
Great. Do you have any questions for Julia?
How long is the PIP? How long does it last?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think it's only needed for 1 year.
Okay. And are we paying a mentor extra to assist her during this year?
Yes, so anyone who is new to us receives some form of support. It's always been really important to us to support our teachers. So if you have finished your credential and you're just starting out, you go into induction, which is a 2-year program. But also if we have a teacher who's an intern, which is the case with Lorna, we also identify a mentor for them that just meets with them on a weekly basis and supports. So yes, she will receive support.
Okay.
And we pay our mentors somewhere, it's depending on the type of mentorship and the requirements of the mentorship, it's anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500
For the year or per session?
for the year,
Okay.
per person.
Okay.
Some have more than one mentee.
Okay.
Any more questions? Okay. Do we have any public comments on this item? All right. Seeing none, I will bring it back up here for any discussion.
I mean, this is, the resources that we need at the middle school level are just huge. It's a huge deficit there, you know, especially as we prepare them for high school. So I'm really glad to see someone that you're excited about come in and do this. And I know we need more, right? I guess, you know, my biggest concern is retention, right? You know, do we bring someone in like this who obviously are very excited about, provide them with a mentoring, and what kind of commitment do we get from them so that we don't go through this again, right? For some reason, this just sucks teachers dry, this particular area. So I hope that we can really provide all these really wonderful people who are coming in, not with just the support that we're offering them, but also the desire to have a sustainable career here, especially in this area for these kids. So that's just kind of what I'm thinking off the top, and I don't know what we can do for that, you know, but you're the experts.
That's kind of a reason that shows the importance of growing your own. When it's someone who's already a member of our community and has those connections, and then we support them, I think we have a higher likelihood of retaining them.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
It's also a focus in our special education strategic plan, retention, and making sure, so I'm gonna be doing a lot of work too with our new teachers in special education, so that we can have that support and that affinity group of, you know, sharing experiences and also getting feedback from them about what they need.
Will she be considered a full-time employee right away?
Yes.
Good, okay, great. So she'll get all the benefits of, super.
Well, it seems to me that like having somebody that we're bringing from within and having them grow in that position, not only is it like we are bringing in our own, but it's probably saving us a ton of money on like external hire as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, not going through an agency or something.
So,
exactly.
you know,
For certain.
And in our district, because we have relatively low number of administrative positions, there's not a lot of like room to grow in our district. You're like a teacher or you're a principal, and there's no like assistant principal, or there's only one coach in the whole district. So there's really limited opportunity. So anytime we can take a CSEA employee and move them into the credentialed area of our work, like we're through the roof about that, and Lorna is going to be a great fit for us.
Great.
Any more discussion up here? No? We have to make a decision on this one, so it's someone like to make a motion.
I'll recommend we approve the filing of an application for provisional internship permit for a certified staff member.
I will second that for
Daniel?
Lorna Bolano.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And Rachel? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, our next item is recommended approval of a new classified job description, staff assistant.
And that will be me. So we have 2 staff members here at the district office that are retiring. We have our financial accountant as well as our office assistant here at the DO that are retiring. And we took that as an opportunity to take a look at our positions, and we worked with CSEA on revising an existing job description we have, which is the staff assistant job description. And we incorporated some of the tasks of both of those positions. And the purpose of doing that is to be able to eliminate one of the positions with just this position. And so by doing so with this particular job description, this will allow us to be able to save $70,000 moving forward. So by approving this job description, it allows us to be able to we've already started looking for somebody, but we can actually hire somebody under this job description.
Do you have any questions for Chris?
Tell me how you're saving the $70,000. I'm sorry, I didn't connect the dots.
We have 2 positions and it's going to become 1.
Oh, it's okay. This is consolidated.
It's
into one.
consolidating the 2 positions.
And is this consolidation manageable, considering it's 2 jobs for one person?
It is 2 jobs from one person, but we also have some of the stuff that is kind of going away related to the financial side. We have the new financial system, and there's some tasks that are going away with the new system. So that's an example of efficiencies that have happened.
So essentially, the workload of 2 is not going into one position. It's one position that could definitely handle the decrease of workload
Yes.
with a little bit of extra.
And
We
one of
do.
the positions is part-time. It's not two full-time
Okay,
positions.
that's good to know. Okay.
I believe that one's like a 0.6 FTE. So it's basically taking 1.6 FTE down to 1.
Okay.
And the pay range on this is lower than the full-time position was and higher than the part-time position was. So it's kind of falls in the middle of those two. That's where some of the additional savings comes from.
Okay.
I mean, one other thing that I'll just note here is that like it is efficiency, but some of the work is going to get distributed to other people. Like Stephanie's going to have to do some ordering where there was an assistant that did all the ordering. There's some things that Chris will be doing, so it's not like the amount of work is manageable just for one person. Some of the tasks are getting spread around as well. So, and some of it's from the financial system as well. But this is part of our ongoing effort. We're going to be a district that's always forced to look for efficiency and find opportunities to trim the budget as far away from students as possible. And this is, I mean, Measure H just passed. We could just not do this and, keep both positions. But we know that being efficient is important to our community, and we're going to continue to do that regardless of how much new revenue comes into the district.
Is there upward mobility with this position, with this job?
That's a good question. I guess the only upward mobility would be into my position on the finance side. And that would take a lot of work to get there, a lot of training.
There's a big gap between this job and Chris's job. Some districts' offices our size have a CBO and an accountant. Like Miller Creek's a good example. They have a CBO, but then they also have an accountant in the same department. So if you did a restructure at some point, this person could potentially move to an accountant level. But that would be expanding the district office footprint, which I don't think we're not going to be in the business of doing that anytime soon.
Any more questions? Alright, do you have any public comment on this agenda item? Public comment? No? Okay, I will bring it back up here for any discussion.
I think staff mobility is tough, right? Just like Tyler said with teachers, it's such a small district, it's going to be tough to have all these layers. So while not great, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's a staff assistant, so it's not
Yeah.
like we're having them crunch the budget and present it to Sacramento, right?
We have to vote on this one. This is Anthony, you'd like to make a motion.
So I'll recommend the board approve a new classified job description, staff assistant.
And I'll second it.
Chris?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
And Rachel, aye. Alright, so we have a new staff classified job description. Next item is recommended adoption of resolution, what is this, 142526 Education Protection Account EPA spending plan for the 2026-27 school year.
That one's me again. This is one of those that has to be done annually. And what happened in November 2012, the state passed Proposition 30, and they billed it that they were giving additional dollars to education. But the reality was they pulled dollars away from us and gave it to counties and states, and then gave it back to us, pulled it away from them, and then called it Prop 30. So they call it a triple flip, gives no additional dollars, but helps the state in their tax revenues. And by doing so, we now have to set aside these dollars and show what they're being used for annually. And what we use them for is to fund teacher salaries. And so this resolution meets that requirement.
Chris, this is one of those things, it was on that list Chili's keeping of like extra paperwork that the state makes us do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was like, this sounds like a waste of your time.
This is a waste of time, unfortunately.
I mean, I'm glad we're spending the money on teachers.
Yes.
Also,
Why?
yeah. You have any other questions for Chris here? Do you have any public comment on this agenda item? No? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back for a board vote.
I recommend that we adopt resolution 142526, education protection account spending plan for the 26-27 school year.
I'll second.
Both Daniel?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rachel, aye. All right, next item is 4, recommended adoption of resolution 102526, tax anticipation notes, TAN, for the 2026-27 year.
So this is, again, me, and this is an annual resolution that we take to the governing board. This one is a little different in that we live in a county that allows us to be able to borrow directly from the county of Marin. And then what they do is they charge us negative interest back. So they're actually making the rest of the members of the pool whole. And by doing so, what it does is allows us to be able to not have to go out on the general market and borrow money when we have the need. And with us teetering in and out of community funded, the way our property tax dollars comes in, we get 2 large tranches of dollars, and that's the bulk of our money. So we get the bulk of it in November, December timeframe, then the rest in April, and we get very little the rest of the year. So we have cash flow issues that result from that, and so this is a great help to the district in that we can just borrow directly from the county.
You have any questions for Chris?
Do we know, I mean, the impact financially is de minimis, I know that.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious in how we navigate that cash flow. How much have we drawn down, just average yearly on this? Do we know, like?
Generally, we haven't had the need to, but
Okay.
it's there if we need it.
It is, okay, all right.
Do we have any public comments on this item? All right, seeing none, we do have to vote on this one, so would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll recommend the Board of the Trustees adopt Resolution 10-25-26, authorizing tax anticipation notes for 2026-27 school year.
Well, I'll second that one.
Thank you. Chris? Chris?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Rachel, aye. All right, a lot of enthusiasm there for TAN. Okay, next item is 5, recommended adoption of resolution 152526, transfer of funds.
This is another one that happens annually, and what it does is it allows us to transfer funds between funds to ensure that we don't run out of money in certain areas. So, and also to make transfers if we need to. What it does, it mainly is for things like our cafeteria fund, which we pay for some of the stuff before we get the funds, and so it does allow us to be able to transfer dollars back and forth and keep them whole during the periods that they have not received their revenues from the state. So again, this is just one of those things that's annual.
Yeah.
Any questions up here? I've seen a lot of these over the years. Any public
I remember,
comments?
it seems like we just did this,
Every
I was
year.
like,
Yeah, every year.
yesterday.
Any public comment here? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Yeah, I wanna recommend this one, Chris.
Okay, you do that, you go.
We're gonna adopt the resolution 152526, authorization for transfer of funds.
I'm gonna second that.
Okay, Daniel?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And Rachel, aye. All right, item number 6, receive for first reading of revised updated board policy BP and administrative regulations AR in series 1000 community relations.
Yeah, so this first one here, bringing a couple to you, is around the Williams uniform complaint process, and it's really, I mean, we bring this to you quarterly, and it's about sufficient materials and qualified teachers and safe school facilities, and they're just updating it to make sure that everything is in compliance in terms of the filing procedures investigation and response timelines, appeal rights, and all of those good things that are part of Williams.
Any questions? Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, do we have any discussion up here from the board? This is a first reading, so there's no vote. Any feedback?
Are these changes just the red changes
Yes.
and they're just the straight CSBA recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, Williams Act, you're just gonna follow exactly what you're supposed to do, so there's not really much for us to do other than adopt it.
And this is a first reading, so we'll see this back again next board
It'll
meeting.
be on consent in
Next one.
August meeting. Yep.
Okay. Alright, so with that, any other discussion on this one up here? No? Okay. So our next item is 7, receive for first reading of revised updated board policy BP and administrative regulations AR in series 4000.
Yeah, this one, we've actually spent a lot of time in HR talking about and implementing this year. So this is about SB 848, which expands employment screening requirements related to egregious misconduct. And this is for certificated and for classified. And so basically, anytime we hire someone, we are required to reach out to every school district, private school, any school setting within where they have worked to see if there's any reported misconduct. And certainly for certificated teachers, that would include any reports to the CTC. And Lori Ross gets those calls from other districts when our folks are looking for jobs, and she is reaching out and checking each time we move forward with employing.
The one place this gets really tricky is substitute teaching. You could imagine a world in which someone substitutes at Reed one day, Ross the next day, Mill Valley the next, Santa Fe the next, and then us, and we have to go follow up with all of those school districts to make sure there's not egregious misconduct in the districts that they've worked in. The county has helped with some efficiency on that. They have a registry for all the subs, and if there's a complaint from a district, they're basically taking off that registry. But the superintendents were very worried about the workload for HR's departments around that, given the fact that a sub could work in 25 different school districts over the course of, a quarter.
Are we taking questions right now?
Any comments? Yeah, questions right now.
So it seems so 1985 to call everybody. Is there not a database that the MCOE keeps that we can just type the person's name in, like a Lexis search that says what they've done? I mean, because the whole thing is reported misconduct, and as we know, some misconduct is not reported. It's just like, make this person go away. Mm-hmm. And if you go away, we won't.
I mean, some of that comes up just through our fingerprinting process, right? In terms of some of the activity, but there is not. So we are required to make the phone calls to check on each.
Okay.
I don't know.
This seems so backwards.
It may be done.
I mean, there's something we can do about the process, but I'm just like, why are you still making phone calls?
Yeah, I don't disagree.
You know what I mean? I can pull up someone's Facebook and tell they're a jerk. Okay.
No more questions here? Do any public comment on this one?
Do we want to go through all three of them before we do questions?
Oh yeah.
Well, they're all
the same.
Are they all
similar thing,
the same. It just is
Basically.
really, the role that the employee has.
These are the same three that were listed earlier that hadn't been changed. Yeah, I've looked that up. They're just.
Oh, sorry. I see how they're listed separately.
Yeah.
But do you need any action on this? This is just.
No, this is just a first read of it.
Yeah.
First reading.
So it's time for people to be able to say questions here, like, hey, I want to fix this or change this, like we did with the AI policy.
Yeah.
We're like, no.
But this is not an optional policy, like this is one that we need to move forward with. It is important, and I think it's actually, a really strong step in the right direction for the very rare occurrence where.
What counts as egregious?
Well, that's a really good question, and there's probably some gray area within that because it's gonna be the agency that makes that determination
Right.
of whether or not they're reporting something.
Right, exactly, which goes to
So-
the fact that something we may subjectively determine to be egregious in Ross Valley
Mhm.
may not have been in another district, therefore not reported. It's such a gap. We have more time to talk about this, I think there's some gaps in here, but I don't think, do we have the ability to strengthen the language ourselves, or do we have to just adopt what's here?
I mean, I think we can strengthen the language.
It's just so subjective, what's considered egregious, you know what I mean?
But we can't determine what others will report to us.
Right, we
We can
can't.
only determine what we report.
Right. And of course, it has to be reported, it can't be grapevine, rumor mill.
Right,
Which is
generally
all-
like for a teacher it would be a complaint that went to the CPC and then you report that.
Okay.
Any more questions about this one? Do you have any public comment on this item? So that was just for discussion tonight. You can always reach back out to Julia, Chris, if you had suggested changes.
Reach out to me, Julia's not.
Oh, darn it.
Call Julia and Michelle.
No, call Julia and pass her.
Hey,
That makes me
I got a
sad.
question for you.
Okay. Next item is E8, staff presentation on local indicators.
That's me too. So this is something we bring every year as a part of the LCAP. And the LCAP reflects 8 different performance indicators, some of which are monitored by the state, like, academic success through CASP testing and the CAST scores, and then chronic absenteeism or attendance. But these are the others, and I'm realizing I cannot read that from here, so I gotta open it up for myself. So we report on the California dashboard for the indicators that we assess locally. So the first one of those priorities is basic conditions, and that's basically making sure that all of our employees are appropriately credentialed in their assigned role, which we do. That's why we bring things to you like the PIP. That our school facilities are in good repair, and that every student has access to standards aligned materials. And then priority 2 is all about implementing state standards. So for that one, we are looking at our professional development, we are looking at how our curriculum aligns with state standards, inclusive of English language development and instruction. A part of that work was our work on identifying priority standards, the work that we've done on revising our report cards to make them more in alignment with priority standards. That's all a part of that one. Parent-family engagement. As you know, we shifted to a new survey tool this year at Calvin, but that is a part of our of addressing priority 3. And then just all the ways in which we welcome parents into the district, whether it's DLAC, supporting our English learners, our multilingual learners, or our special education advisory committee. Our sites welcome parents in all the time through coffees and site council and PTA and all kinds of events. School climate, again, using our Calvin survey to learn more about our students' experience. Particularly, we've had a really strong focus on their sense of belonging. Chronic absenteeism and school suspension rates is something that we look at there. And then also we've had a focus, the equity work that we do, the DEIB work both at the district level with our Parent Guardian Equity Task Force and also at the site level. Many of our sites run a really robust DEIB program as well. So really making sure that all of our students have that sense of belonging. And then finally, access to a broad course of study is just making sure that every child is receiving all of the instruction that we are required to give, and that when there's enriched instruction that they have access to that as well. And those are the local indicators. There's also linked to the board docs a much more detailed description of the ways in which we've met each of those indicators, and all of those are uploaded to the dashboard, and so that the public can view those on the dashboard. And I think this is this is not an adoption, this is just a presentation where we're required to present our local indicators prior to adopting the LCAP.
So it's information, presentation, discussion.
Yeah.
Any questions up here?
You're looking at me, because I'm not gonna let Julia go without throwing out a couple of hard questions.
This is your last chance, so go for it.
I actually have a question.
Okay.
And this is kind of a, we look at the LCAP and it's a micro view through the state of California, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have those standards based on a state level. But from a macro perspective, you're like, woohoo, look how our kids are doing in regards to the state performance. But if you look at the state of California and the national performance, what are we doing to say, yeah, it looks great for California, but what does it look like nationally on those levels? I'm just like,
Wow.
you know what I mean? Like Massachusetts, let's just throw that state out.
Mm-hmm.
Their scores are pretty good through the educational process, and their LCAP has a very different threshold. So as we have our kids compete on a national level, and we're myopically focused on California, are we kidding ourselves?
I mean, there are assessments that are given across states. There's the NAEP that gives us information about math and reading, and those results were released again, I think, wasn't that this year? Tyler, do you remember?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, they are showing drops in both reading and math.
Yeah.
But that's not an assessment that our kids take. It's taken within California. It could be our district. It hasn't been our district. But that's a national indicator there. And then iReady is nationally normed. And so you can see where kids are there.
But iReady is the only one we have, right? For that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's on that level.
And
But I feel like the
other
CAS
kids and other states are doing iReady.
Yes,
Same.
and many states use the CASP as well.
Okay.
And those CASP proficiency levels, I think, are the same from state to state. And so that is an indicator.
So we got the CAS scores today. I'm talking as a parent and also when we look at those scores, are they based on California or are they national?
They're based on California Common Core. So
Right.
California adopted the Common Core and made a few revisions, not many, to the Common Core, but it's based on the California set of Common Core standards.
Okay, so we are measuring against other California residents without a national. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But most states have a large suite of the Common Core state standards as their standards, and then some states added more.
Mm-hmm.
California was one of those states that added more. Massachusetts added more.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's a comparison to the state, but not all kids, but most kids across the country are held to that same core set of standards.
Yeah.
There are a few states that I think opted out of
I
it.
think it's like
More
47
southern
or 48
states, yeah.
have adopted the Common Core.
Yeah. I mean, we're preparing our kids really well for the high schools, right? So they go into TAM, and the long game of how well they'll fare once they leave this area.
Mm-hmm.
Will they have their asses kicked, or will they be able to compete, right?
I think if you think about
kids do really well.
our state college system, the UC and CSU, is some of the best state schools in the country.
Yeah.
Our UCs are amongst some of the best public schools in the country, UCLA and UC Berkeley, and a lot of California public school kids get into those schools. So aside from the Ivies and other highly selective liberal arts schools, I think our students do pretty well.
Sorry for the curse word.
Chronicle publishes acceptance rates for every high school in California to the UCs, so you could look that up if you want to see how they're each doing.
That was my tough question for you.
All right, any other questions? Do we have any public comment on this item? Good. So it was just discussion for tonight. All right, so our next item is item 9, recommended adoption of local control and accountability plan for the 2026-27.
So we brought the LCAP to you for a public hearing on June 3rd. And in the time since then, there have been just a few adjustments that Chris is going to explain because they were in his realm, not mine.
It really had to do with the LCFF budget overview for parents, and it specifically had to do with the budget. And whenever you make revisions to the budget, the numbers within the LCAP have to change as a result of it. So it's minor tweaks, nothing of sustenance other than our total budget numbers. So that's really what's there. And you'll hear more about those budget changes in the next agenda item.
So this is year 3 of our LCAP. And next year will be an LCAP building year. We've talked about that, and Tyler has lots of ideas about, moving forward. Your LCAP really is your strategic plan, and it's functioned really well, and I know it will continue to function well. And so we recommend adoption of our 2026 LCAP for the final of 3 years.
Do you have any questions?
So I meant to ask this last time, but I'll do it now. So we're just not doing anything for the LCAP next year since it's just a planning, or we're going to continue with what we've been doing?
We are, we went in the LCAP, we reflect on all of our goals and actions, see how we're doing with them, and talk about what our next steps are, where we see challenges, what we're going to do to meet those challenges, particularly focusing on our unduplicated pupils.
Mm-hmm.
So the approval of tonight is next year's LCAP, next year's strategic plan. Concurrently, we'll be doing a mission, vision, values engagement process, and we'll be overlapping some of that with an LCAP development process. So next year at this time, you'll be approving a new 3-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So we'll be doing development for the new year plan and implementing year 3 at the same time next year.
Do we have any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for any discussion before we vote on it.
Thank you so much. The LCAP journey has been great with you.
I have said this before, I'll say it again. I really appreciate this LCAP because it really does capture the bulk of the work that we're doing, and it's all being implemented. It's a simple plan, but it's comprehensive at the same time. And I think if you look at LCAPs across the county and the state, you'll see some that are, so comprehensive you can't track the actions and things aren't getting done. And the simplicity yet breadth of this plan is really good. And I hope to build on it next year. Really keep a lot of this work the same. It's great work. It's leading towards increased student outcomes year over year over year. And I think we should keep doing the things that are working.
And just to give an example of how, the LCAP in action, at the beginning of this year, at our administrative team retreat, we took all of our actions, all of our goals and actions, and talked about what's this going to look like for our site work and what will this look like for our district work. And so then tomorrow, when we have our end of the year administrative team, I've taken all of everything that we said it would look like and everything we said we would do, and I have it all laid out, and we're going to be shuffling it and figuring out kind of where on that continuum of, we're still just getting started with this, to, hey, we make huge progress here, but it is a part of the air that we breathe, of digging back into it, time and time again, and seeing where we are and seeing what's important.
And part of tomorrow's admin team meeting, we will also take a look at the plan that I have for the community engagement around new mission, vision, and values for the school district, and how that overlaps with LCAP development. So we're kind of getting started on that process tomorrow.
Any more discussion on this one? All right, you have to vote on it, so I'm going to make the motion.
The motion? I'll recommend that the Board of Trustees adopt the LCAP for 2026-27.
And I will second it.
Thank you, Chris.
Aye.
All right.
Rachel, aye.
Thank you.
Our next item is E11, recommended adoption of resolution 08-25-26, proposing an election, requesting the Board of Supervisors to consolidate with any other election.
I think you skipped
Did I
one.
skip
You're
one?
number 10.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Hit the wrong check mark. Okay. Poor Chris. Sorry, Chris.
The best one.
Wait on this. Okay, number 10, excuse me. Recommended adoption of the 2026-27 district budget and multi-year projections for 2027-28 and 2028-29. Sorry to check mark at the wrong spot.
Okay, so this, normally I wouldn't have to do a budget presentation for the second meeting in June. And normally what you would do is you would have your public hearing at your first meeting and you do the presentation, and the budget doesn't change to the final. Ours has changed a lot, and it changed a lot as a result of Measure H. And so what we have tonight is some of the same stuff as you saw 2 weeks ago. And I have it in there just so people know that things have not changed. And so, for example, our attendance and enrollment, those numbers are the same as what we had 2 weeks ago. But I wanted to make sure that everybody has that data. Funded ADA versus P2 ADA. Our funded ADA is what we get paid for within our LCFF calculator. And that is the higher of your current year attendance, your prior year attendance, or the average of your 3 prior years attendance. And your P2 ADA is your current year attendance. It's a measure of your attendance as of a period that is at the end of March. Revenues and expenses, and here's where we kind of have numbers that have changed a lot. With Measure H, with the June 3rd election, actually it's June 2nd, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. June 3rd was the budget
June
meeting.
2nd.
So the budget since June 3rd, Measure H has, it's not official yet, but it will pass based upon the percentage of yes votes currently. What we've done in the 26-27 budget, we have added the additional, it initially was projected to be $3.6 million, but what we're seeing is a large number of senior opt-outs and larger than normal. So far, based upon the numbers we're seeing, we've dropped it down to $3.5 million increase in revenues. And we also had to add back expenses that we had pulled out for our Tier 3 projections, cuts, the Tier 1 cuts, and I have a slide on that next. And so the net, it changes roughly $3.3 million. And that's just an approximation to for people to kind of understand what changed in the budget. So when looking at it, within the 26-27, those Tier 1 reductions are the ones that were removed, and the expenses were added back to the 26-27 budget. Within our multi-year projections, in the second year, we added the Tier 2 reductions back. We added the Tier 3 reductions back in the third year of the multi-year. I wanted to make sure everybody knew, again, that we had included closing down 2 schools, going to half-day kindergarten, half-day transitional kindergarten, eliminated counseling positions. All of those things have been added back to our budget based upon the passage of Measure H.
And that's like a huge, huge win. 2 schools are not closing down. We're not doing half-day TK, half-day kindergarten. We're not doing the elimination of certificated PE or elimination of the second elective, teacher leadership programs, the instructional coach. All of that stays, and I think that's part of the huge win of Measure H. All those things make our schools better serve our students, and make the working conditions for our teachers better. So I'm super proud of the work that the committee did to get Measure H passed, because it saved all of these things from being cut.
So then in terms of our revenues have gone up. What you would see, I'm going to point straight to the parcel tax to the left. It's at 23.5%. It was approximately 15.7% previously. And so it's a large increase, and you can see it right there. And so that is the single largest thing that you'll see, and really the biggest and only change that we had between our June 3rd budget presentation and this.
It was 15 point.
It was roughly 15.7%. And this slide is just looking at only your LCFF and parcel tax revenues. And previously you had seen we had removed the parcel tax revenues in the third year of the multi-year projection. Want to make sure that everybody sees that we've added it back, plus expanded it based upon the additional revenues. And so as we look at our expenses, we did add back that $170,000 in expenses. And so that's the real change and only change that you'll see in the salaries and benefits. And so that's what you have for 26-27. Again, single largest source of expenses is in the form of people, which is what you would expect since we're in the business of people. And so our salaries and benefits are almost 77%. When looking at our fund balance, and this is important because multi-year projections, oftentimes people look at it as being an actual projection and that it's going to be those numbers. It's the best information we have at that point, and things change. And just as I provided you a multi-year projection with things 2 weeks ago, everything has changed based upon the data we have, measure H specifically. So projections do change. And so this is the one thing that you see. What are the impacts within our multi-year projections? And we talked about all of these things previously. There's lots of different things that are impacting our multi-year projections. Step and column costs, which are the automatic increases based upon people getting an additional year of service credit. You get additional salary increases. Utility costs, property and liability insurance costs, or special education costs, in those COLA adjustments that we talked about. You also have that super COLA that we are. It does look like the super COLA is going to be, in fact, approved, and so that should be in there shortly. It's part of our budget, but it also doesn't affect our LCFF revenues next year because we flip into community funded status. But and then also you have your P2 average daily attendance numbers change, and we are a teeter district.
Chris, can you go back to that list? I see that you've got utility costs and property and liability insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Our schools are disintegrating, so there's upkeep for those infrastructure repairs, right? Is that something that would be on that list as a part of multi-year projections, or am I looking at?
That's a really good question and a really good point. We do have aging facilities, but we have something called routine restrictive maintenance, and that is a specific resource code that's on the restricted side of the budget. Mm-hmm. And we're required to set aside 3% of our total general fund budget.
3%?
3%.
Okay.
And it goes over in the form of encroachment. Basically, it's dollars transferred out of the unrestricted side into the restricted just for the maintenance of the school district. And so
3% is not nearly enough to cover the types of improvements we need
that was my
in our
next
facilities. And a large portion of that 3% we spend on just our people.
Mowing the lawn and paying our maintenance.
Paying our employee to mow the lawn.
Well, and this is a requirement that everybody in the state has, but if we're setting aside 3% of one of the lowest amounts of money in the entire state, then we're spending less than other districts as well. If they have large LCFF calculations, they have a larger amount of money that goes towards the upkeep of those facilities. Right. And I don't think that is being thought of at the state level.
No.
So there is a disproportionate share of dollars that are going to certain districts and hurting districts like us.
There's a lawsuit in process about that right now.
Yeah, so that
So the reason that's not in this one, Chris, is because these are specific changes that Chris has made to the budget. So when you see increase in utility costs, essentially what he's trying to say there is that in the past, you budget $500,000 for utility costs in year one, $500,000 in year two,
Without taking in the
$500,000 in year
inflationary cost
three,
of utilities going up. On an
knowing
annual
that
basis,
the
right.
utilities costs are gonna go up. So he's changed that. And I wanna give Chris credit for this. He tightened the budget so much over the last 2 years that he did not project any increases to utility costs or property and liability. Unfortunately, we know those things are gonna happen. So he's budgeted those back in to the budget. So we have a more accurate projection of what our utility costs are gonna be in year 2 and year 3.
we always included the step and column costs though, but that is something that's built in automatically to our budgets.
And for instance, the special education costs, he's putting revenues in this one, but there's costs in there too, went up $1 million each of the last 2 years. I think it went up like 900,000 in 1 year and 1.1 in another year. So $2 million out of a $30 million budget just in that one area is a significant increase. And if we were projecting flat costs, then your budget's going to be really wonky when you get to unaudited actuals.
So are you saying that when you're putting in an increase in special education revenues, you are assuming what we've been paying in that area?
So the reason that I included the special education revenues is that the state included an additional $1,300, approximately $1,340 for per student for special education, and to the district it amounted to roughly $500,000.
Yeah.
And so I've included that in our budget that you will see tonight, and that was in our budget 2 weeks ago as well.
I remember.
But then the special education costs, I specifically have added, and going back to what Tyler was alluding to, I've included an additional 5% escalator in our non-public school, non-public agency, transportation, those types of things in special education specifically. So you'll see that those are increasing.
5% is pretty reasonable. You could have, a contract with Oak Hill across the way for one student that you send over there, and Oak Hill changes their pricing by 10% in a year. So that's not controlled by us. That's not saying that we're going to have more kids in non-public school placements. That's just saying that what non-public schools charge us will likely increase by an inflationary amount between 3
gas
and 10%.
prices, everything can indicate a rise in that, right? Yeah.
And I think because we were running the budget so tight in the last 2 years, not having these increases in there made it really difficult. So I think we need to add these back in so we're more accurate in the third year out.
And so as we look at our general fund, this is the total general fund. And so what I want to point to are the red letters at the bottom, because beginning in 23-24, we were state aid. In 24-25, we were community funded. In the current year, we're state aid. Next year, we're projecting to be community funded. You see this continuous flipping in and out of community funded status. They call that teetering. And what that really does is it impacts your LCFF revenues. So you see large swings in your LCFF revenues there. When you flip back into state aid, your LCFF revenues are fairly flat, where when you go into community funded, it flips back into a large increase because of your property tax base. And so until we stay permanently in community funded status, our budget is going to be this highs and lows every other year. So it's going to be really difficult. And so at this particular point with the measure H in there, you do see excess gains in there, but that also does not assume any salary increases. So I want to point that out as well.
So you're saying the two out years, 2027, 28, and 28, 29 don't have any salary adjustments in there?
Or 26, 27
Yeah,
at this
all
particular.
three of those out years. Where you see in the net fund and change balance, you see 2 million positive, 1.9 positive, and 3.1 positive. A lot of that's gonna get wiped out with increases to salaries.
Is that why 26 through 28 remains flat, 34 million? And the total expenses?
It has to do with, that's a
I'm
great
trying to
question.
reconcile that we're going up at roughly 3 to 4 million in expenses every year, but it seems to go flat in 26, projected out to 28 for expenses.
We had a lot of one-time expenses in 25, 26. For example, we had instructional materials that we were spending out. We had TK materials that we were buying. Our salary settlements were one time. So we did have a lot that was one time. But then what you see is you see it drop and then you see the increase, the steady increase as you move forward.
Right, but I guess my question is that would it make sense to have an assumption of unforeseen one-time expenses continue, since that seems to be the history, or since you're assuming other
I mean, we
expenses
could
as
do
well?
that. We could do that, but you also have to look at it from a multi-year projection status and
Right.
salary settlements. And the more of that you do, the less that is on the table for salary settlements.
Sure.
So,
And a lot of those one-time funds being expended are used out of one-time fund revenues. So for instance, a block grant might help pay for a curriculum adoption, or a one-time grant from the state might be put out to teachers in one-time compensation because we gave 0% raise. So things like that
Okay,
with the one-time expenses.
just trying to gauge for surprises.
Yeah.
Right.
so I know several years ago there was a lot of talk at the board level because there was a large feelings about the size of our reserves, but I had talked about a fiscal cliff because of the dropping in the drop of our enrollment and as a result our attendance. And so you do see that's what that fiscal cliff is. This is not unique to the Ross Valley School District. It has happened in many districts, but where somebody who sits in my chair becomes nervous is when it's as steep as it is. A reserve is there for a rainy day. It's not there to just sit there, but it does make you nervous. And so with Measure H, you do see our reserves going back up, but again, that has to do with not having salary settlements in there.
What do you think the third year out will be once all the salary settlements are done?
We'll be adding two different years of salary settlements. I expect it to be in the 7 to 9% range.
So single digit, below the board total, or the board ask. So in the August meeting, we're probably gonna have to bring a resolution to the board to forego our board policy on the reserves for a year. And then I'm already working on a restoration plan for the reserves. I think one thing to note is the 25%, although got real critique from the community, and some of it was valid at the time, it helped us not cut programs over the last 2 years. Because the fiscally responsible thing to do if we had been at 10% would have been to eliminate electives and certificated PE immediately and quickly. So having a little bit of reserve gave us 2 years to go out to community, change our revenues through the parcel tax, and save those programs. So without running some sort of, healthy reserve, 10%, between 10% and 25%, you risk having to cut programs prematurely before you increase other, revenue sources. So I'm really happy that the board at the time kept the reserves up around 25% because it preserved those programs. So the quality of our schools is still really high. And now we're gonna be hovering, somewhere in that mid to high single digit revenue or reserves in the third year out.
How long does it take to build, to go, say we do it 7%, let's just say we're at 7.8%. How long does it take to build up the reserves to a level that we can say we're comfortable with in a policy? Like, what are we?
If our special ed funding continues to increase by $1 million a year, never.
Never, okay.
If we can control our expenses and live within our budget, we could do it in a year or two. So I think there's a lot of factors, right? We want to pay our teachers because we want to retain the great teachers we have. We did lose 9 teachers this year based on my exit interviews solely because of pay. We lost 4 last year. So over double the number of teachers left strictly for pay this year. So we want to increase pay in a meaningful way. But also one-time funds from the state could be swept into the reserves, and that's an easy way not to impact your regular ongoing revenue. And one-time money is easier to kind of sweep for a one-time cost into the reserve. So I think the board's going to have a real conversation in August about what a reserve restoration plan looks like. I think more money will fall out of the budget in the coming years because Chris has added some percentage increases. So the board will have a decision to make of whether to give some of that money that's fallen out of the budget to teachers for salary increases, to improve programs, or to sweep for the reserve. So I think the August meeting, whether it's the first August or the second August meeting, will be a pretty robust conversation around, foregoing our board policy for a year and then kind of dictating what we want to do for a restoration plan.
Okay.
And I know seeing a V shape here might give some in the community, they might not like to see that. What I do want to say is that we've only had a week to put together our budget since our presentation 2 weeks ago. I have 4 systems I need to touch during that time to get our budget. It doesn't seem like it, but I have 4 systems that help build our budget. In addition, we had negotiations with our teachers during that time and have just come to an agreement. And so you don't see any of those salary settlements in here. So I just want the public to understand that this is just what you're seeing at the moment. And by the time you see this again, and we will have to do a 45-day budget revision because of the block grant dollars, which appears to be positive. It looks like we might get it, the entire amount. Could be up to $1.5 million more. So as soon as the budget is approved, we'll have 45 days. So by mid-August, we'll come back and provide a budget update. And this will also include probably our AB 1200 and our salary settlements in there for the teachers.
And one thing the board talked about heading into Measure H was making sure we could give salary increases more than just 1 year. Mm-hmm. Right? So we've done a 2-year deal, and the reason we've done a 2-year deal is because the actual 3-year contract, the collective bargaining agreement we have with the union, ends in 2 years. So we would have had to bargain over 2 different collective bargaining agreements, which would have been really funky and difficult to do, and I'm not even sure CTA would have allowed us to bridge into that new agreement. So we've done 2 years, and our goal is to come back to the union in 2 years and settle another agreement for a 3rd year of raises. My goal going into Measure H was to do a 3-year agreement, but because of bridging those 2 CBAs was just really clunky, we were unable to do that. But I think that this V shape is not real. It's a much flatter line. But I do think with one-time money, some money falling out of the budget, mm-hmm. and our reserves, we'll be able to go back to the union in 3 years and do another settlement agreement with them at that point.
Well, that's good, because I'm thinking in my head that it empowers us to feel more comfortable with those negotiations going forward, which gives us time to see what falls out, puts us in a better position. And better for the teachers as well, correct?
And if we manage some of the ballooning revenue areas, that'll put more money on the plate when we go back to the union to negotiate. And frankly, what I want to do in that third year out is actually expand some of the programs we have. We have a great intervention program. I'd love to see that include math intervention or math extension for students. I'd love to see another settlement agreement with our teachers, but we have to have a little bit more money on the plate. So LCFF adjustments, money falling out of the budget, one-time money, reducing some of our expenditures, all of those things are still going to be our focal area. Measure H is not the end. Measure H really is the beginning of this process.
And this is a look, there was a question from the governing board at the last meeting. What do our districts that surround us that we kind of compare ourselves to, what do their reserves look like in comparison to ours? And so what I did is I went and I pulled the unaudited actuals from last year, which is the real number that we have. That one we know for a fact is accurate. And then it's looking at only the second interim budget, which would have been what was approved in March. And so you see the multi-year projections and you can see those numbers. And, we're the second highest at unaudited actuals, but then as you look at our multi-year projections, we drop down to the lowest. So you do see that. And again, it's not unusual for districts to show this pattern that they're dropping, but for ours, what has been happening with us is those large expense increases, which are real. And
the largest recorded DARES number is pretty large there at 43%. Part of the settlement agreement they did with their union this year was $5,000 on every cell of the salary schedule, in addition to a one-time $7,000 off-schedule check. So that's how they spent down the $7,000 off schedule, is how they spent down some of their reserves to say, okay, we're going to reduce this number. We're just going to give it one time so it's not an ongoing expense because this is one-time money. We're not going to give it for ongoing expense. So you see how they spend some of their reserves down that way. And they've settled for 0% for the following year. So they kind of had a big settlement agreement for next school year with the $5,000 on each cell plus the off schedule, but then the second year out is a 0%, which will allow us with our settlement agreement to pass most of their salary schedule cells. There's an issue with our salary schedule, and I think the union would agree with this, is that on the top end we end at year 17. So our staff gets there quick. But then between 17 and 30, there's this big gap where our teachers stand still at 17. And I think that's a real risk for retention for some of those Golden Bell winners that PJ mentioned, some of those really high quality teachers that are sitting at 17 for 2, 3, 4, 10 years. But I appreciated this question from the board. We always show the 25% as the statewide average, but these are the districts we compare ourselves to, and we will likely be right in alignment with them in that third year out, right around 7 to 9%, which is kind of in that ballpark.
There's also been some other questions related to what has been the progression of our actual general fund, and so what I've done is taken a look at our 25-26 year, because as you look, our estimated actuals are the current year budget, and then the adopted budget is next year, and that's what you're approving. And so I just wanted to show what our unaudited actual numbers look like. Our unrestricted numbers look like. And you do see a progression from our adopted budget with a deficit of $2 million to almost $3.5 million in our unrestricted general fund. And as you start to dig into the reasons, We have an increase in our revenues, which you see at the top, and that had to do with increase in enrollment. But then we also did have additional staff, so you see that within the classified salary area and benefits. But then what really were the drivers of those cost increases were mainly your special education costs. And so whether it was encroachment or the services specifically related to some settlement agreements. And so that's what's really driving those increases. And I'm going to say this, I've been in education 25 years. Ross Valley is the smallest district that I've been in. I've been in districts that were 7,000, 5,000, 6,000 kids. I've never seen $1 million increase year over year over year in special education. So even for me, it's surprising and not something that I would ever project. So I just do want to show that there.
So Rachel, at the last meeting you asked, wait, what's the difference? Like, we used to see a $2 million deficit spend, and now we're seeing like almost 4. What gives? Where was this? What happened here? And I think this slide next kind of articulate exactly how that deficit spending changed from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And part of that is that Chris didn't have any increases built into the budget because he had tightened it down so tight. So that $2 million deficit was likely going to be inaccurate by the end of the year because there weren't projections built into that. So is why he has built them into it.
On the restricted side, you shouldn't be worried about seeing deficits on the restricted side. And the reason you shouldn't be is because we have expected spend down of one-time dollars. And so that's just what happens. So, but I did want to pinpoint some of the changes. You see the encroachment up at the top. Basically, encroachment is taking dollars from the unrestricted side and moving it over to the restricted side. So it's paying for your special education, and it's paying for your routine restricted maintenance account that we were talking about earlier. And so those are the things that go in there. But then you also do see changes in our salaries and benefits and our services. And one of the things that is rather difficult for me in particular in our district is the clunkiness of having to budget for the staff at the beginning of the year and then transition them to services as soon as the budget is adopted. And so you see these swings in our salaries and benefits for various things. And so that just happens. If you look at our categories, you see decreases under like the classified salaries. We started with almost 1.4 million, then immediately dropped down to 1.1. Well, those are going to be things like your instructional aides that are in special education. If we don't have those filled, we need to move those down, the dollars, into the services. And so you also see that on the certificated side, except that certificated went up. And the reason it went up is because we had one-time salary settlements that came in time for that first interim budget. And so that's why that's there. Then you see, as you kind of see a progression on the classified budget, you see in the estimated actuals, it's gone up since our second interim. On the classified salaries. The reason for that is we had a salary settlement with classified staff. And so we adjust our budgets as we have those types of things that come in. And so that's really what happens. And then the other thing that happens that every year on the restricted side is as we have carryover dollars, let's say we assume that we're going to spend out a program. If we don't, we then roll all those dollars back into the budget the following year. So you would see increases in your first interim budget for various categories. So that's just kind of what happens on the natural with our budgets.
Remind me about the supplies line going from
that supplies we had
projectors and stuff like that put in the classrooms. Is that
no? What we did is we had a TK budget from the state, And so what we were doing is we were starting new TK classrooms. So we were buying all of the furniture, all of the various items that they need for the TK. It's also the instructional materials funds that we have. And so those are the things that you see in there, which is why you see that large increase.
Yeah, our TK, the number of TK kids we serve expanded quite a bit this school year, so that's part of that.
Yes.
It's a lot.
Any
Money.
TK classroom, you're changing from kind of a regular school classroom to a completely play-based environment, and so it's all new furniture and items for kids to interact with.
A little kitchen and a fire
It's
truck
amazing
and
how
all
much it adds
that
up.
fun
It's really
stuff
fun
for
to
us.
go shopping for them.
And several years ago, because the state was putting in this new TK program and they were slowly expanding it, they gave what was known as the UPK, Universal Preschool and Kindergarten Grant. And so we've had that and we've been slowly using it, but we used it in earnest when we had this large influx of children. And so those are the types of things that happen. So then really this is just what you knew already, the risks to the budget. We have the special education costs, our enrollment and demographics are, that they can change in an instant. If, for example, and we don't want this here, but in Paradise, when they had the fire, they went from having a full city to serving no children. So that's an example that can happen in an area. So we have attendance growth, property tax growth, and just the risk that's happening in the general state budget and the national budget. So all it takes is a recession or a conflict in the Middle East, and the economy can turn south in an instant.
Can you go back to that slide? Just want to up on what Chris said in earlier slides about the Super Cola. The Super Cola is really helpful for us in the second year, but it's not for next year. So I think some people are expecting like a Super Cola for next year's revenues. It just isn't going to hit us because we're community funded next year. The one-time block grant, there was a little bit of a scare late last week about that being distributed to schools based on supplemental and concentration funding, which would mean we would have gotten $20,000, maybe $30,000. I think what's on the governor's desk is to have that distributed by average daily attendance, which will move that number to 1.5 million. So the swing between, supplemental concentration fund and ADA is really significant there. And then it's not in here, but Chris alluded to it earlier with the district and community controlled aspects, is the number of senior opt-outs we have. We were actually seeing a decrease in senior opt-outs early in the year, which lets me know that there's some housing turnover happening in the community, which is a great thing for our budget, due to the amazing efforts of Measure H and the messaging that we got out around senior opt-out. That bumped up this year by about 100, but I would expect that the trend for that to slowly come down over time, over the next few years as housing continues to turn over.
And this last slide is just our normal, letting you know that basically every 3 months we have our budget due. And if you look, the adopted budget is the same as the estimated actuals. They're the same thing, but the adopted is 26-27, estimated is 25-26. That's really all it is. And then the unaudited actuals will be the next full budget that I show you when I close the books for 25-26. And I'm going to go back. There was one thing that I skipped over really fast, but I just wanted to make sure and point out that we had services and other combined, and we did break it apart a little bit further. We included here our property and liability expenses here. I didn't break it down further. If I'd broken it down further, you wouldn't be able to see the numbers, just because it starts to get too granular. But yeah, you can see property, liability, insurance, and utilities up there at 3.3%. So, And with that, I think that is it for the presentation.
All right. Do we have questions for Chris for now? I feel a little bad that you're having to do multiple budgets in the next short period of time, but I'm also really grateful you have to do more multiple budgets. So I'm kind of sorry, not sorry. So another question.
Is that a question?
It wasn't a question. I was thinking about having a question.
This is the first time the budget's been presented lately that I don't want to cry afterwards. So it's kind of good in that regard. I mean, it's not perfect, but there is some positivity here for this projection.
Do we have any public comment on this one?
Excitingly, Measure H funds are now reflected in the multi-year budget projections. I know that doesn't reflect teacher salary increases yet, but based on the promises we made during the campaign, the community expects that after both union agreements, the reserve percentage will not be over 10% in any of those years until the following are met, and many of these were noted in the presentation. RVSD salary rankings should be at least the top bottom of the quartile. When we lose teachers due to low salaries, it also hurts our reserves, so no benefit to not prioritizing people. All cuts to programs and school site staffing must be restored. Our SPED and behavioral support teams must be fully and appropriately staffed for each school site. And we must build tier 2 support, such as math intervention and social emotional support at all school sites, which makes teachers' lives easier, improves student outcomes, and reduces unnecessary IEPs from families desperate to access what should simply be available to all students. The board and district, when putting H on the ballot, which I'll add was for much less than was advocated by for more than 100 emails to the board, communicated clearly to the community that this parcel tax revenue will meet the need for maintaining core academic programs, attracting and retaining highly qualified teachers, and maintaining manageable class sizes. We expect that then all of the approximately $3.5 million in excess will be added across the expenditure lines for the certificated salaries, classified salaries, and employee benefits. I hope we're all in agreement about prioritizing people and programs as we promised the community instead of padding reserves beyond 10% unless we get LCFF reform or go out with another parcel tax. I also, since I have a little bit of time left, I just want to add that since we don't have that many data points for math intervention, because it was kind of a pilot program at Manor, my daughter was one of the relatively few kids that benefited from that program and is such a success story from that program. She was below grade level for math. She did, a relatively short amount of time with Ms. Elizabeth, and now she is at grade level. She will very likely not need additional intervention, and I would just love for all families to be able to have access to that. But more than that, I would love for all classrooms to have access for that, because it's so nice for the teacher to not have to repeat things. It's so nice for the students to not have to repeat things. And then also just on the social emotional front, I think it's often kind of ignored. Like, my daughter doesn't need coaching in social emotional learning, but she would love if her peers could. Like, it's really distracting for her in class to have kids that don't have these skill sets. And if we can build those tier 2 supports, it's really going to benefit everyone. Thank you.
Any more public comments?
I guess my opinion is largely the same. I'm glad we included the information on the peer districts, relative reserve levels. And I think when I was looking at Kenfield's, I think their total that they want to have is like 6%, because I always find it very frustrating when we list a 25% state average, but we certainly don't want to be state average in most other categories for our school. We would not like to have state average testing scores. I know from the Yes Spiel a lot that only 17% of school districts have the art and music programs like we have. You wouldn't be able to maintain that and have these kind of reserve levels. So it is always a balance, and to the point of having the cushion being nice, I suppose, that does not factor in the savings we might have had for teacher retention, and the idea that, we're, it's not just the future students who the district's finances should benefit. Like every year there's a set of 8th graders who this is their last year in the district, and to the extent we're holding money out because we want a cushion just in case things go for the worst, that's taking away from their education and their experience. The $3.5 million is nice, and I hope, the board's reaction when it comes time to see how all the money is going to be divvied up isn't to hold back and say, we would like to do more in this area and that area, but we can't right now. When we had the opportunity to ask more, I think the ambitious but realistic approach, given what the community seemed to really want for its school district, is to seriously consider a much smaller but supplemental parcel tax for the 2028 statewide elections. If we can implement the H funds before then, and also at the same time have the board and the district put together a real assessment of the programs everybody says we want but we can't afford with our current budget, and putting together a very, very focused ask, that would go a long way for our schools. Thanks.
Do you have any other additional public comments?
Hello, I'm a parent of a 2nd grader at Manor and a rising kindergartner at Manor. And excuse me, professionally, I'm a social worker, and I'm trained to look at systems in addition to individuals. And while I am not a financially minded professional, I do feel pretty strongly that a really good way of saving $1 million in SPED costs is funding stronger SPED programs and early interventions. It seems, at the risk of being overly simplified, if you want to save money on those kinds of settlements, you get proactive and not reactive. You put math intervention in place. You keep robust reading interventions in place. You make the referrals to the SPED program more appropriate to the SPED program, and not just kids who've been allowed to continue falling behind with wider gaps in their deficits because you don't have people supporting them academically, mathematically, social emotional learning wise. Like, be proactive, not reactive. Save yourselves money and continue to cultivate a school district that people want to move to so that you have the housing turnover to fund the district. Please make good decisions.
Any other public comment? Last call. All right, bring it back to the board for discussion up here.
One thing Chris and I have been talking a lot about is the interaction between the size of our reserves and the size of our deficit spending. So having a 7% reserve is not that big of a deal if you have a balanced budget and you're not deficit spending. We have not been in that world recently. We've been deficit spending to the tune of $2 to $4 million. So if you're deficit spending at that rate, you need more of a reserve. So I love this rosy future that I think we can get to with discipline and hard work and focus and early intervention and all those other things. But we have to have a balanced budget in order to have a minimal reserve. You can't have deep deficit spending and minimal reserve at the same time. That's just a recipe for, having to go out and make deep cuts. And I think we're trying to avoid that at all costs. So I'm eager to have the conversation in August about about suspending the 10% reserve cap and, you know, talking about a reserve restoration plan. I think that's important. And in order to live thinly, we need to have a balanced budget, which we have not had in the last few years because we haven't cut programs. So I just think that nuance there is an important one for us to pay attention to as we move forward. Chris, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you did a beautiful job explaining.
Thanks for teaching me.
I think also, yeah, I agree. I think the elephant in the room, though, and you and I, before we even hit the ground running, you know, we had coffee and talked about the tsunami of what's hit us with special education, right? And the number of kids in our schools that are on IEPs, and, you know, what we're doing just to address, I think, the public is the proactive nature that you are working at, Lori. And it's been incredible to see the difference. I've seen a cliff actually there, because it was, at the time I will tell you, we were on the phone weekly. I was like, this has got to stop. This is gonna be your anvil, you know, when you come on board. And I think it's that we have to continue, because that's gonna be our downfall financially if we don't continue the wonderful work that you've started, the plans and the hiring the right people. It's gonna kill us.
And I want to be clear that the spending in special ed, sure, there's an element of the settlement agreements that we are working on. I think we've got a great plan. I think we're going to see that number. I know that we're going to see that number come down next year and probably in the next few years. But the other factor here is twofold. One, we have way more special ed students per capita than any other district in the county.
Right.
The county average is about 13%. We're at 18%, approaching 20%. Do we really think we have 20% of our students who need an IEP? There's some investigation to do there. And the number of dollars we spend per student is higher than other districts as well.
Right.
That increase has gone from $27,000 per student with an IEP to over $32,000. So that's really where the spending starts to skyrocket when you have nearly 20% of your student body on an IEP and you spend, you know, an exceptional amount on each student. And I say that all understanding that our number one goal is least restrictive environment. If a student needs a one-to-one aid, we're going to furnish a one-to-one aid. That's what the student needs. We're going to give it to them. If a student needs a placement at Oak Hill because they need those supports, we're going to place the student at Oak Hill. If a student needs 3 times a week of 30 minutes speech and language support, that's what we're going to give them. We want to give the kids what they need and make sure that if the student doesn't need the one-to-one aid, that they don't have it anymore because it is too restrictive. Or if they're if they're at Oak Hill but they can work in our schools, let's bring them back from Oak Hill and have them in our schools. Right. So if we really focus on least restrictive environment, I do think we can get to a place where this spending comes down.
And I think wherever you have that increase in population, you have that increase in litigation risk, right? Mm-hmm. That's always going to come hand in hand. But I think just to kind of just belly on top of what you said, there is that proactive understanding that we do have to service these children, regardless of the percentage going up. For us to sit back and say, do they all need IEPs? That's not for us to decide, right? But I think that, you know, I think it's something that we are doing well and we need to continue to do as we look at this wonderful progress with Measure H is we can understand and really appreciate this windfall if we continue to go on the path that we're doing. And I just wanted to just note that it's not keeping me up at night like it used to. It's keeping you up at night.
Here's a really simple example. We have 0.6 FTE reading intervention in all 4 of our elementary schools. That comes to the cost of about $360,000 across the district for our intervention program. It's a fantastic program. We're getting great results from it. We have 80% of our students reading at or above grade level. We should be super proud of that early intervention that we do, of the extra support we give our students. If we didn't expand spending in special ed by $1 million this year, we could triple the size of that intervention program.
Exactly.
So then we're doing tier 2 intervention instead of special education, which is tier 3. Then we can expand math intervention, we can have more counseling, we can have more reading intervention, we can actually have some supports that might extend students who are already above grade level. So
Right.
I think that when you look at the dials you can change in the budget, there really isn't much in this district because we have the bottom 4% of revenue in the state. But this is one area where we really shouldn't have 20% of our students with IEPs, and we shouldn't be spending $32,000 per IEP.
Yeah.
We should be more aligned with the countywide average in that space.
And just hearing you indicate that you're looking at the optics of those dials from where you're sitting today brings me comfort that you're looking at the right things on where to change it here and there to tweak what we have very little to work with. But I really appreciate the lens that you're looking at this. That's really great.
I've got a good partner with Lori and
Yeah.
Chris.
If I could just add one more thing to that, though. We have a lot of staff that we have to fill through service contractors. And part of the reason that you want those higher salaries is to be able to also attract and retain those additional staff. So you spend less in those service. So that is another way potentially that we can save dollars in that arena. So.
And I'm going to give Lori credit too here. We spent $180,000 on our own lawyers last year. She's going to spend under $80,000 this year. That just one change that she's done is, I mean, $100,000 doesn't solve our problem in the district, but it is a significant chunk in the right direction. I mean, that was a decision that she made to change law firms and to make the connection between us and the law firm more efficient. So she deserves all the credit in that, and she's looking at every single corner of special ed to make it as efficient as possible and make sure kids are in the least restrictive environment.
Yeah. Thank you.
I got a whole lot to say, and I'm going to be saying this in a revision version very shortly. So, do we have any more discussion up here? If not, we have to vote on this. So I'll entertain a motion.
So I'll recommend we adopt the 26-27 district budget and multi-year projections, 27-28 and 20-29.
I will second.
All right, Daniel.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Rachel, aye. All right, so we've adopted that before our due date, July 1st. Next item is 11. We're actually moving to this one. Recommended adoption of resolution 082526, proposing an election, requesting the Board of Supervisors to consolidate with any other election conducted on November 3rd, 2026, and requesting election services by the Marin County Elections Department.
So this is a pretty simple resolution. We have 2 board seats up for re-election next year, so we want to make sure that we're on that November ballot for 2 open positions, and that the registrar knows that we're ready for that.
Any questions up here? No. All right. Do we have any public comment on this item? All right. Seeing none, I'll bring it back up for any discussion we might have. Just kind of got to do it. All right. So we have to vote on this one. So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll recommend that the Board of Trustees adopt Resolution 082526, requesting the Marin County Board of Supervisors consolidate the election of 2 Ross Valley School District Board Trustees with all other elections throughout the county to be conducted on November 3rd, 2026 general election.
All right. Do I have a second?
No, we'll second it.
All right. Chris?
Aye.
Daniel?
Yep.
And Rachel, aye. Okay. So that's passed. Next item is F, consent actions. We can approve these all in one motion unless somebody would like to pull one out for discussion. Questions there? None? Okay. Do we have any public comment on any of these items? No? Okay. So, do we have any discussion in here? Not? then-
Sad to see these names always on this list. That's it.
Fair enough. All right, I'll entertain a motion on this one since we have to vote.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent action items.
Travis again.
I will second.
Thank you, Daniel.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
And Rachel, aye. All right, so consent. Next item is G, board business, committee updates, reports from, and announcements by trustees.
I went to quite a few of the promotion ceremonies. They were awesome, all slightly different in their own way. Very cool. Not cool temperature wise, but just really cool how the individual personality of the schools come out, and it's really neat. I chaperoned the 6th grade White Hill beach trip to Stinson Beach, which was a fascinating social experiment, it went well. Had a great time. Super tremendous amount of work from the teachers that put that on. And so I asked all of them, I was like, this is so much work for you guys. And they love it. They know the kids look forward to it. And it's really good. We probably had, 30 or 40 parent volunteers out there, which is the most I've seen at a White Hill event this year. Maybe we had that many for Great America for the music, but maybe not. Anyway, it was an awesome end of the year celebration for White Hill. I think that's all I got.
Yeah. Graduation was great. I was a good attend, and I spent the night with the entire 4th grade class of Brookside Elementary. We drove 3.5 hours to Gold Country, and it was incredible. The teachers, the work they put in, the planning. A lot of these kids never get a chance to sleep out or have a sleepaway camp experience, and they really thrived in that environment. It was wonderful, and a bit of a social experiment as well. But aside from the drama of a bat in one tent and kids crying for their parents, the parents came together and really helped them navigate that first time sleeping away from home. So I just think, I hope they continue to do this. It was my first time doing this, and it was great. I think that's all since our last meeting that I did.
I got to go to Hidden Valley for their variety show, it's always fun to see what the kids come up with when they're doing their own performances. So it was a lot, and they had a trio or alternating trio of like hosts who were emceeing, and they were hilarious. They had a constant stream of dad jokes. So it was just a lot of fun to see. Like there was dancing and there was acting and skits, and then there was just like jokes, and it was just musicians. There were some people who played piano and violin. It was amazing. I did attend all the promotions except for Manor because I had to go to Archie Williams High School, which is 105 degrees on the tarp. It was so hot, but it was lovely to go to all of those different ones. And like Daniel was saying, they all have their own like special, they touch them, so it's fun to see those. I got to attend the Student Services Department celebration for the staff, which is just lovely. I've never been to one of those. I don't think they've had one before. And that department is so much work, and it was just nice to see them being appreciated. So that was sweet. And then I reached out to our CSBA PACER. There is a small districts advisory work group that CSBA has, and so I let her know that I'm interested in joining that. Currently I have to go through a nomination process, but and it starts in September. So I'm trying to get into that way because like they're doing all this lobbying, and I'm like, hey, you need to hear a small district viewpoint, and I don't know who else is in that group, but I'd really like to make sure that they're hearing what was going to affect us as well, because we're very different than somewhere that's out in like the valley or far up north.
Do you need another trustee to do this with you, or do you want to go?
I don't know. I don't know how many they have. Right? I'm just learning about this.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure that we're
let us know. I'd be willing to step up with you.
Okay. Great. When we find out like what the process is and things like that, I don't know what. Like literally just emailed her today to find out more. So listen. Oh, and we went to Sacramento on Monday to talk about AB 1204. The way their process goes is like crazy efficient. by the time we got there, I mean, we started at the very beginning of the session, we arrived there, but they like skipped the public comment part.
Oh,
And had to go back. So they had already like made all their decisions before we got up there. So it was like kind of an afterthought, which is a little bit annoying, but it's one of those things that CSBA and CASBO, which is like the California Associated.
School business.
Yeah, the school business, yeah, the
Were you
CASBO. So
there
both of those.
Were you there as well?
No, but
Titles.
they both changed their position on it to like opposing it, and they did that, I think it was June 3rd or 2nd, but just one of those things that I'm trying to follow up in Sacramento, and if nothing else, it's like they get used to seeing our name and maybe can make connections to help us out a bit. I don't know, we'll see. I'm trying to do more advocacy at the state level, so that was kind of the first step. And with that, our next item is approval of regular meeting minutes for June 3rd. Any changes, questions to those?
They look good.
That's so too. All right, I'll entertain a motion on those.
I would like to recommend that we approve the regular meeting minutes for June 3rd, 2026.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Daniel?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And Rachel? Aye. Okay, so those are approved. Next item is H, Superintendent Cabinet Reports.
Today is the, what is it, like the second or third day of summer, depending on what school you went to. And it doesn't feel like that at all. We have been super busy lately. We had negotiations with our union partners Wednesday, and I felt like that went really well. The relationship we built over the last 3 years is really positive, and we're able to be really clear with each other and caring, which I just have that as the foundation of that partnership is the right thing. I attended all 5 of the promotions, loved all of them. Our principals do a great job with that. And hearing student speakers or students share their perspective is just like the highlight of my week. And plus the song that was earworm for me for the whole weekend. I also got to judge the Fairfax Parade, which was just cool. So, like, this is my first time at the Fairfax Parade, and I got to see the witches on stilts, and it was fun. I got to see some of our manor parents up there representing the school.
It's a great float.
It was a great float. Also went to Sacramento, and I also wrote Damon Connolly and Mike McGuire, the Sebastian brothers, Mike McGuire, about AB 1204, clearly articulating the parts of AB 1204 that I think are beneficial to our district, and the parts that I disagree with or would like to see changed. The advocacy at the state is really funky. It's like a support situation where I think AB 1204 is one that there's parts of it that I think are really great, and other parts, I think the regional cost of living, the 4% COLA floor, those are great items that I hope get enacted, where the focus on supplemental and concentration actually would deepen that inverted U curve for us and put us further behind other school districts, and I think that's problematic here in Marin. I also wrote both of them about the block grant that they were kind of deciding about, funding it through supplemental concentration or ADA. I advocated pretty strongly for the ADA because the difference for us would be monumental. So I'll have to admit that I'm learning about advocacy at the state level, and I have a steep learning curve there. I don't think many superintendents engage in this process at all, unless you're like San Francisco or Oakland or LA, but a small school district like us typically doesn't engage in that, but I'm committed to learning and doing better there. We attended a special education funding training today. Chris, Lori, and I, through School Services of California. We have our A-team end-of-year retreat tomorrow. I want to be clear that the retreat is just in this room. It's just a meeting like normal. It's not a spa day, and we're not renting some really nice space. It's just us here. And then a meeting with Stephanie, our new assistant superintendent, next week to talk a little bit more about transition planning and what we have on tap for next year.
All right. Yeah, I went to all the promotions. They were lovely. And I've just been kind of wrapping things up and trying to make sure everything's super clear for the handoff. The biggest part of my work right now is HR and hiring. And, we've had some really great hires. We hired this week a teacher for Brookside who's going to be fantastic. She student taught at Hidden Valley and had rave reviews there, so that's really great news. We hired a math teacher for White Hill. I can't tell you, when I found out we had a math opening, I nearly cried. And then within a week, we hired someone who I think is going to be really great. So I'm very, very relieved about that one. And we already talked about our White Hill RSP teacher. We hired Lorna. Today, we hired our new instructional coach, Nicole Stewart, who is a longtime teacher in the district. She teaches at Wade Thomas, and she is absolutely fantastic. She leads our PAR panel, and she has done a ton of work around induction of supportive new teachers. So really, she's been living the coaching life. She has her administrative credential. She's just fabulous. I'm very, very excited about that. Stephanie was there today when we did the interviews, and it was just nice to spend time with both of them, and just made me feel confident. And I don't know, I'm feeling so many feelings this morning. And I just want to end with gratitude. I am so grateful that I spent my entire career in this district. I did the math. And I taught somewhere around 1,500 kids. And I want to start with how grateful I was for my time as 26 years as a teacher. Because those relationships that you have with kids and families, and the relationships you have with your colleagues as you are working with the kids, it's just such a beautiful, and it's touching humanity all the time. And then I also want to say how grateful I am to all of my administrator colleagues in this room, to Lori and Chris. We're a great team. Lori, it's been amazing having you and working with you and partnering with you. And Chris has taught me so much about the budget and answers my questions and lets me push back if I'm trying to figure something out. Tyler, I can't imagine a better way to end my career. I love partnering with you. And our board, you are all amazing. I feel the weight of what you hold. I know from my work, particularly in administration, you're farther away. I'm not, you're not in the classroom, although I see you all on campuses constantly. But you're holding a lot, and I just want to say thank you.
I just want to say to you that we were in the trenches from the moment we met, working on, the racial equity group, and the 7 stages of grief and the emotional journey we went on to get the policy written. And I just remember at one point we were on the phone and for hours just wordsmithing this document. And I remember thinking the dedication that you have in your job was immeasurable. And it was an honor working with you through that process. It was a heavy journey, and we still like each other.
Absolutely.
And it's just
an honor to work with you as
it was an honor, and I want to thank you very much for leaving us in a better place. Thank you. For sure.
That's a hard one to follow. We had an amazing student services celebration the other day, last week. Tyler was there, Rachel, thank you for being there too, and Julia. We celebrated just our people and just had a really nice time afternoon just to kick back, relax. It was right before the White Hill promotion, so they got a little bit of nutrients because I provided some hors d'oeuvres from Comforts, and we celebrated our 2 Golden Bell winners, Cecilia Woods and Christopher Nelson. We also celebrated 2 retirees, Peter O'Reilly and Ken Smith. And so it was just really nice to get together and just take a load off for a minute. It's just been a very busy end of year, wrapping up with things. A lot of stuff sort of happened at the end of the year, and trying to get kids placed in the next grade levels, like from 5th to 6th, from 8th to 9th. So a lot of that going on. As we mentioned earlier, we're doing a deep dive into special education, just really turning over every stone, figuring out where we can do better and improve our systems. Tyler and I met with each principal and literally gone through every single student in special education on every site, gone through all the aides to see exactly what we need, and then I'm starting to meet with each of the departments, speech, OT, psychs, and all that. So that's exciting, and there's a lot that we can do for starting next year in that area. When you just approved the classified personnel actions on consent, you hired our first registered behavior technician in our district. And what that means is we had to hire outside for that position before it for agencies because we didn't even have the job description. However, we worked with CSEA this spring, got the job description passed, and now we just hired Christopher Nelson as our first RBT, which is super exciting. And that will reduce one of our agency RBTs, which will save us money. And Christopher has so many great ideas. We're gonna meet next week, and he's super excited, and it allowed him to take a step up because he's been an instructional aide in a special education classroom. And he was actually looking, like thinking, I need something a little more. So this came along, and so he's super excited to take that position. Another thing I did want to mention, earlier this year, we all approved Language Line, which is the interpretation system that we can use. It's on demand. It's 280 languages you can choose from at any moment. So I wanted to give you some stats on that. 50 hours were spent on Language Line this year. Over 120 calls for maybe it was an IEP or just an office manager needing to translate. Hey, your kid just fell off the monkey bars. And we had calls in Spanish, Ukrainian, Portuguese, and Haitian Creole. The total cost for this was $2,500.
Yes.
If we had contracted out, we would have been spending about $12,000 to $15,000 for our the language people that we have to. It's a 2-hour minimum and all this. This you can pick up. I mean, I can pick up the phone right now and have a conversation with somebody in Spanish. So anyway, I'm so grateful that we got to roll that out right away. I was very excited about that, and so many people are using it. So it's really increased our ability to communicate with our multilingual learner families.
That's great.
So yeah.
Mine is going to be short. I do want to say thank you to all of the retirees and Julia in particular. It's going to be hard without Julia and all of her years of knowledge of the district. And so thank you. And also to all of the other retirees. And other than that, I have nothing else to report this evening.
Alright, next item is meeting review. I've got future board topics and board direction. You have anything?
Julia, easily my favorite person.
Should go into debrief. Anything I wanted to add here? Meeting debrief?
Good. Thank you, Chris.
I'm sorry I was full of questions tonight.
No, don't apologize.
Poor Tyler had called him earlier, had questions. I was just,
We're still half an hour ahead, so it wasn't that many questions.
I really appreciate the questions you all. It's nice to do the budget presentation and have the round two because you asked some really good questions that Chris was able to go get data and bring it back and have like a different view. So to the extent we can do that for you, just let us know if there's another angle you're looking at. We're happy to integrate that into the presentations.
So. All right. We don't need to continue past 10:30, so I'm gonna adjourn our meeting at 8:32.